We're here to help you navigate your business growth with strategic conversations and insights from experts in multiple industries. Welcome to Wayfinding Growth.
This episode is brought to you by Impulse Creative's Video Marketing Masterclass. George B. Thomas built out an 11-module on-demand course on how to leverage video in your business at impulsecreative.com/VFM for Video Masterclass. And welcome to the show. I'm Dan Moyle.
And I'm Remington Begg. We're glad you're here. On today's episode, we are talking with the King of Clarity, Steve Woodruff. Steve's a consultant and an author who has helped many professionals from solo consultants to Fortune 100 pharmaceutical companies with their brand identity and their messaging. He's definitely a wayfinder for others. So Dan, what did you love about this episode?
Oh man, Remington, I've took some notes here, man, for viewers. You see my notepad there. So one of the things I love about this is when he's talking about growing your business, we're wayfinding growth, right? We want to grow and find that journey. He talks about going deep into a niche that he thought maybe was tapped out, but he just went deeper and grew even more and had coming back to that well. So for wayfinders thinking about that, you don't necessarily have to go beyond your niche or your niche. And then the second thing is, again, King of Clarity, we're talking about clarity. It's not just the clarity of message outside of your business, your brand, it's clarity within it as well, internal communications. And we talk a little bit about that and how he helps people do that. And it was just a great in-depth insight into clarity on both sides of that. So how about you, man? What did you take out of this today?
Yeah, so for me, so between the past couple episodes that we've had, there's been this keyword that keeps going around, is self-awareness, right? He didn't really talk about self-awareness necessarily, but you could tell about like his trials and tribulations he had. The self-awareness is what brought him back on course, where I think if people aren't focused on one, who they are, or don't have the clarity about who they are or what they do, not having that self-awareness is a detriment. So he definitely has that. The other thing is, I've never really heard it used this way. Going after symbolic language to bring across your point, it's actually fantastic. I thought that was really great. I can't wait for listeners to dig into that in a few moments. Absolutely. And then he talked about the tool, like being the network of people. And I love how he unpacks that too, where I think a lot of times, especially when we get busy and we're focused on growth, that network of people is one of those things we don't think about until we need it. And if you don't nurture that along with the rest of the stuff in your business, that could be killer.
Absolutely. Yeah, great insight. I'm so excited for listeners to dig into this. We are here for season 2, episode 6 with Steve Woodruff, the King of Clarity. So, hey, let's set that course for growth.
Woo!
Steve, welcome to the show. This is Wayfinding Growth, and we are excited to have you on board, my friend.
It's awesome to be here. Great to see you guys.
Absolutely. So the King of Clarity, let's talk a little bit about how you help entrepreneurs and business owners, as you call it, find clarity. What does that mean in the big picture?
I usually speak of clarity in terms of 3 main things: the identity, the focus, and the message. So every company, every business, every brand needs to be crystal clear on their identity. What is your purpose? What are your strengths? What are you really all about? What's your place in the market? Where you fit in the marketplace? Are you going at big? Are you going at small? Are you going for entrepreneurs, startups, all that? And then, of course, your message. You've got to have a very clear, succinct, memorable message that gets across in 15 to 30 seconds, because that's all the time we've got. And what I have found is the vast majority of businesses lack clarity on 1, 2, or all 3 of those levels.
And which one do you see as kind of is that the order? Your identity, your focus, and then your message?
Correct. That's how I see it. It should ideally come forth. The message is built on, where your focus is and what your identity is. So if there's some kind of a group called Impulse Creative, and I said, well, what's an Impulse Creative? And you said, well, we do kind of marketing things. Well, that's not a clear identity. I mean, sure. I'm not real clear what's going on there. Right. And if I say, who do you serve? What part of the market? Well, we basically go after anybody that pays money. Okay, right. That's not a lot of focus there. And so subsequently, there's no message. Your
Right.
message is, I'm just another company looking for a handout. So you've really got to zero in on what makes your company unique and cool and differentiating and special.
What do you hear when you hear that?
Well, I love it because I talk to people all the time about, we help companies create a consistent marketing message, right? Putting out the same message out, like the continuity. I talk about continuity and focus all the time. So it's like man after my own heart there. But I like the idea of the clarity behind it, and because the company really needs to have that clarity within before they can project it out. And
Correct.
I have to say that's a really great point, because when we're doing like our brand exercises and stuff with clients, they tend to, if they have it, that's almost like the North Star for them. And if they don't, it is like pulling teeth to get any kind of movement or direction. So that's I love that you brought those together in that order, because that's absolutely on point.
North Star is a great term. I'm reading a book right now called Forging an Ironclad Brand by Lindsay Peterson, and she talks about brand being the North Star. And I often talk about having the compass and the GPS and the direction. And it really is internal work. It has to be done by the people that are running the company, leading the company, if we're going to have any kind of consistency and alignment in our message. And for many people, that's a big step of faith. I mean, it's what it is. It's saying yes to very specific things, which means you're saying no to a lot of other things. And that's the scary part.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And like, I remember my BNI days, Business Networking International, like they always talked about the fact, like, asking for a referral from anyone is a referral from no one, right? And it goes the same thing in business right now. And I actually just read one of your blogs that you put out about the business is closed. And, just based on like putting those pain points together and like articulating a message that might sound really complicated, but also, super uncomfortable for those individuals. So that's pretty awesome.
It's an art form that's difficult for people inside of a business that don't have a branding or marketing background, because our tendency will be to speak about a lot of technology, a lot of detail, a lot of insider language. And one of the biggest struggles for companies that actually do have real value, they do have an identity somewhere, but they don't know how to pull that into a crystallized message because they're too close to it.
Right.
And so they're in the middle of the forest and the trees, and they don't do a good job actually communicating with people.
Sure. No, that's fantastic. So when we talk about, we get into like charting the course. So how did you get here in regards to, so obviously you've got the book Clarity. Like how did you get to this point? Like what's your journey look like?
Like most people, it looks like a pinball machine. You bounce to here, there, and there, and how did that happen? And there's probably 0.001% of people who mapped it all out from the day they graduated from
for sure.
school, had a linear careers. Primarily sales in medical devices, a very technical niche. And there I learned about business. I learned about sales. I learned a little bit about marketing because it was a small company and there was nobody else to wear that hat, and I was interested in it. So I did 10 years with that company. Never really figured myself to be a salesperson. I did it because I was good at certain disciplines, but the longer I went on, the more aware I was that sales wasn't my strength.
Interesting.
And this was part of a theme that has carried through the rest of my career into Clarity, is my own self-awareness of what are my strengths? What am I really good at? So after 10 years of that, I felt like I'd done all that I could with that company. And I went on with a smaller software company that worked primarily for the pharmaceutical companies, online learning, e-learning, e-testing. And there I did a lot more brand and marketing work, as well as sales, as well as consulting. And I began to flourish a little bit more on this idea of good messaging and understanding, what a niche is and figuring out how you fit into a larger ecosystem. So that was another 10 years. And then once again, I felt that I'd done pretty much all I could for that company. And so I went out on my own 13 years ago. And my business plan there was to work with this whole universe of training vendors that I had gotten to know through that software company, because we were one of many vendors that worked for commercial training groups in pharma. And I worked as a go-between, essentially a broker or a matchmaker, a referral agent between pharma training organizations and this universe of vendors. It took me about 18 months to come up with the concise message that I was the eHarmony of pharma training. But once I came up with that message, people got it.
Sure.
So part of that was, if I'm going to refer people to the ideal vendor and refer vendors to the right work, I needed to understand what the vendors did best. So I started to sit down with these companies, some of whom had been in business for 10, 15 years, and go through an exercise. And I didn't even know what the exercise was. It was just me being me. And in a span of a couple hours, we'd figure out their brand and their message. And for some of them, it was absolutely groundbreaking. For me, it was as easy as breathing. I just did it.
Just think that way. Yep.
And I began to see that there was this magic that I had in this branding and marketing, and I eventually came to call it clarity, where I could uncover a company's DNA, figure out how they would fit in the marketplace, what their niche was, and how to message it. So because of the matchmaking work, which I still do, and I still do a lot of consulting in pharma and training, I came up with this process that turned into Clarity Consulting, which I then began to do with all kinds of other companies outside of that niche, with people in career transition, and then expanding now even into clarity of communications and collaborations for internal teams. But all of it is based on, how do you effectively get a point across to people? And how do you get everybody aligned on the same page? That's the sort of essence of it. And so it grew, this clarity practice grew out of these experiences and out of my attempts to build a business as a go-between, basically as an intermediary. And turns out the clarity part's what I really had the most value with.
There you go. Diamond in the rough.
And you ended up with that title of King of Clarity, thanks to Chris Brogan. I remember that from one of our conversations before.
Yeah. He, you don't give yourself titles like that because it's way too presumptuous. But if someone else gives it to you,
100%.
it's okay. Yeah,
run with it.
True. So, he threw that on my Facebook timeline for my birthday a few years ago. Happy birthday to the King of Clarity. Ha ha ha. And I looked at it and said, man, that's kind of genius.
You're hired.
And,
Right.
So I just took it and ran with it.
That's
awesome.
Fantastic. Steve, what I heard you say too is you called it the eHarmony of pharma training. Now that's a heck of a way to clarify something, right? Borrow from something else and make it yours. Is that the only way to find clarity, or are there other ways that are helpful in that, like that quick clarity message?
So what you've described, which is what I call the symbol or the metaphor, is the actual pinnacle of clarity. All the work we do up until that point of establishing what, the who, the what, the where, the how, the statements of where you belong and what your niche is. What we're always driving toward is to bring it down, distill it down to one statement, usually with symbolic language that people will get immediately. Because the quickest shortcut into somebody's mind is a metaphor or an analogy. So if I can take a business and help them bring it down to a quick word picture that they can communicate, that I feel is the most effective way to promote any company. Better than advertising, better than billboards, better than full page ads. I mean, that magic phrase is what you want to arrive at. And that's what I'm always driving for when I do clarity with someone.
That's interesting.
So much like message is the third part of it, symbol is the third part of, or the high mark.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the symbol is the ultimate. And if you can take all the complexities of a business and its niche and its customers and what makes that business unique and bring it to a point so that in a networking meeting and you have maybe a half a minute to talk to somebody, if you can get that point across that quickly, you win. That's better than 99.9% of your competitors can do.
Yeah, for sure.
Hence the title of the book, Clarity Wins, because it wins, right?
It wins.
There you
That's
go.
correct.
That's good. So I want to ask a little bit about getting back to your journey again. You talked about the pinball here, how it goes around. I got to believe in that journey to getting to where you are as that entrepreneur, as that business owner, as that king of clarity. There had to be a couple of probably a stumbling block or two. Would you be willing to share one of those shipwrecks with listeners to kind of and give a lesson out of that? Like, because again, listeners are entrepreneurs, business owners, folks that are probably having some of those and maybe feeling like, oh, I just can't get my clarity.
Trying to grow. Yeah.
Right. So,
well, for me, the biggest problem has been, and this is for many, many entrepreneurs and creatives, and that is I too easily have gotten distracted away from my business focus. So when I started my work 13 years ago, it was right at the dawn of the social media era. Mm-hmm. In fact, I launched my business on blogging and on using cheap, free tools that were social media. And I, like many others at that point, got very enamored with social media. And I began to divide my time too much, turns out, between my pharma work and this very fascinating, wonderful world of social media marketing and communications. And I did believe, and I think accurately, I saw an incredible business there, an opportunity there. And I didn't quite know what it was, but I wanted to be in. So I kind of, unfortunately, divided some of my attention. I got very much into that world. I tried to create that as a sub-business or as a part of the business, which never quite worked out. And eventually, it just, where was the money coming from? It was coming from my pharma clients. And so I had to sort of back away from that. And then with clarity, I've had a similar struggle. So with my clarity work, it also, I can see that it's way bigger a message than pharma and training. It's basically universal. It's huge. I call myself a micro influencer with a macro message. And, and so I have been tempted again and have to some extent gone off a little bit too far in the realm of trying to build this independent business outside of my revenue stream of pharma and become a generalist in clarity. But even since launching the book, I've had more and more work swinging back over from my pharma clients as I start to take these principles and apply them to corporate needs, corporate communications, collaboration, internal networking. And again, for me, that's where the money was. And for 13 years, every time I've come back to where it's not in this other thing that looks just so tempting to go after. So there's the discipline that every entrepreneur struggles with, I think, is I still keep finding myself wanting to jump at something else.
Shiny things.
Shiny things. And really legit. I mean, it's not like I'm off in outer space here. I'm seeing real things, but sometimes there's a swim lane that's yours and you got to stay there and not, get overzealous.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where we use our mission and our vision really heavily here. Is we've got them dialed down where we can ask ourselves questions like, to your point, social media or conversational marketing is the most recent like pillar that we start to try and talk about from a service delivery point of view, like making sure that it stays true to our mission. Does it help us solve the problems that we define in our, in our value statements to clients? And if the answer is yes, it's like 4 or 5 criteria. If the answer is yes in all of them, then it's an okay to move forward with. If the answer is no in any one of them, it's a no-go. Like that kind of stuff really is really important to that point. And I think that lesson that you have where, you've been lucky enough to be able to come back to it and identify your self-awareness is pretty obvious from a conversation standpoint. I think that sometimes people will forget this when they're focusing so much on this and it's not viable until it's too late. So that's some really great insight for sure.
A related one, which is similar, even within my sector, what I have found is that there are a relatively small number of people that become my customers, that are my advocates, that are the ones that are providing the vast amount of revenue. But I have this internal compulsion to try to reach everybody. And I even write against it in the book. I've spoken against it. I've had to keep telling myself, listen, bozo, you've been, and yet I want to reach thousands. I want to reach them all. And once again, every time I say, where's the money coming from? It's from this relatively small handful of advocates.
Yeah.
Focus on those.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And you can go deep into that niche, it sounds like, too. You think, okay, I've helped all the farmer people I can, or I've helped them in any way I can, but you keep going deeper with them.
I haven't even scratched the surface in pharma. I mean, that's the thing, is I know there's so much more there. And I'm one guy, okay? I'm not a big company. So I know in my head there's plenty of opportunity there. I just need to go about it in a disciplined way and not be constantly thinking way too big.
Yeah. Great lesson, Steve.
Discipline. Love it.
What do you think if that's one of your shipwrecks is focus? What's one of your proudest moments that you can look up and see, man, that's where I really hit it out of the park, was when I did this?
Well, this one will be a little bit unusual, but for me, it has been mentoring and working with my oldest son, who is now a marketing consultant, now an emerging expert in the whiskey industry. He's a internationally known influencer on social media. And he and I got started together on this whole journey of learning about whiskey. And he has taken this thing and run with it. And I've been able to play the role not only of dad, but of consultant, of brainstorming partner, of, awesome. We've just been working together on this thing. And to the point where just last week he went on an all expense paid trip to Taiwan for a week with a up and coming distillery there, Kavalan, that makes great product. And they brought him there, and he one of his unique things that he does is he takes tremendous pictures, whiskey pictures, especially on hikes and on mountains and this kind of thing. He's built this whole thing of the beauty of whiskey and nature that people have now imitated all over the world. And so these companies will pay him to do photography, to do social media marketing, and to be an influencer. He's got 72,000 Instagram followers.
That's great.
And he's known all over the world as Whiskey Nate. So it used to be that people, when they were young, oh, you're Steve Woodruff's son. Now I'm Whiskey Nate's dad.
That's great.
And that to me is the best.
That's awesome.
Because I want my kids to excel beyond the one that's really well known. What could be better than that?
That's so fantastic. I love that. I love that your proudest moment came back around to your children too, because a lot of times in entrepreneurship, we start to go sideways, if you will. So that's fantastic. And Whiskey Nate, now I'm gonna have to look it up. We've actually got a rum shop Ryan here, which is hilarious. He does a similar thing in the Caribbean with rum. So that's fantastic. So thanks so much for sharing that. So when we look at the navigational tools, as we in an essence of trying to keep this nautical, what things did you wish you knew or wish you had when you started on this journey? The
one thing that I wish I had, and I've talked to many who've started up businesses since, because I do a lot of talking to startups and entrepreneurs.
Awesome.
Is you really want a sugar daddy or a keystone client or somebody that with money in their pocket wants what you're doing. Sure. I launched on an idea.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good idea. I survived. But man, I now looking back, I wish I had figured out a way to make sure I wasn't, going in the red first before approaching the black. And so that's kind of you've got to have somebody. First of all, it's proof of concept and validation.
Yeah.
That you have some value and somebody has a desire to pay you for something. But for me, the most valuable navigational tools all throughout have been my network. So I've talked about getting distracted by social media. However, the good part is that I have over the years built a tremendous network of people. I've met many of these people face to face at conferences and other places. And being able to bounce ideas and needs and make contacts and do referrals through a network of people, smartest thing ever. And I would encourage anyone to look not just at the mechanics or the software tools or the whatever, but to realize that it really does work a whole lot better when you've got a bunch of sympathetic souls with you that you can cry on, that you can help support, that can provide input. Many of my ideas have started as proto ideas that I have bounced off of numerous people. And it saved me a lot of grief getting the input early instead of later.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
It kind of comes back to the relationship economy in a way. While you don't want to think of people as transactions, relationships really are the ultimate currency and help you to be your wayfinding points, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I believe strongly, and this was a major theme in my book, in the power of referrals. And referrals come from those kind of relationships. And one of the things I love to do is to introduce people and to refer people. And I love, of course, to gain referrals, because that's how you get business. And then I built my business on referrals, targeted referrals. So referrals for me is not an extra or a nice to have. I view it as the way to do business from now and in the future. And with everything else that's swirling around and all the dynamic nature of the marketplace, referrals are always going to be the primary way to grow.
And it comes back to the clarity then, right? I mean, that's my guess is maybe obvious to the listener, but if you're thinking referrals are it, then having that clarity of message is so important, because if I tell you what I do, I can now go tell people, hey, oh, you're in pharma? Well, I know the eHarmony of pharma training.
Correct.
Like, it's all about that clarity then, huh?
That's the goal of the pinnacle statement. The pinnacle statement allows me to get into your memory in a way that is simple and clear, and allows you to transfer it to the next person. So the beauty of having a simple, memorable, vivid message is that it activates referrals.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
That's great.
Love
Steve.
it.
Man, this is good. We got full of.
Can't wait to read that book.
It's awesome, man. I'm telling you, Remington, you're going to love it. It's really good. And if you really want to have even a leg up before you get the book, go. I'm going to shameless plug here. The Storytellers Network. Steve and I had a great conversation where you can get even insights.
We should definitely put that in the show notes for sure.
Yeah. So Steve, you talked about mentoring your son, Whiskey Nate. But if you could be a wayfinder to a lot of folks, and maybe you've already said this in either, your shipwreck, finding your focus, whatever it is, but if you could be that wayfinder for some folks, what would be your wayfinding points you want them to hit, the first piece of advice that you give them?
For me, the first piece of advice is, as you're starting your business, as you're beginning to grow your business, as quickly as you can, find your differentiating niche. Mm-hmm. Now, many times when someone starts a business, you kind of have to just take whatever revenue you can get. And there may be a period of time where you're just, will work for food. But ultimately, the only way to make progress and to rise above the noise is to be able to find that niche where you have a clear message and a clear advantage. And you may need the help of a branding consultant or a clarity consultant or an agency or somebody. But the best investment you can possibly make is to get your message and your focus straight on, because that's going to affect your work every single day. If you're not focused, if you don't know where you're going, every day you are losing money because you're not heading in a specific direction, or people are not remembering what you're saying, or you're approaching the wrong potential customers, or you're offering the wrong things. Mm-hmm. And so I many times I speak with companies, and they quail at the idea of taking a day or two to invest in getting their optics clear. I just can't think of anything more important, frankly.
That's great advice.
Only a day or so, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Great advice. Well, and it's saying, day or so with a couple key people may equal half of a day of the rest of your team not clarifying or not understanding the direction that you're going. So that definitely solves that. So is there anything that we didn't ask you that you want to make sure our listeners know?
One of the things that I think I emphasized in the book was a lot more of clarity on the outward side of how do we communicate to prospective customers and others. But what you've just alluded to is also very important, which is the clarity of alignment with the team. And you've got to, whether it's a small company, whether it's a department in a large company, whatever the team is, and now increasingly in the corporate world, you have agile teams that are going to come together and work for a period of time for discrete things. There may be multifunctional people. Well, it's even more important to take these teams and get clarity around where are we going and what's the purpose of this and what's the deliverable. Because many times you don't have alignment and clarity among corporate groups. So that's where I'm actually doing more and more of my work. Even though I'm fascinated with the branding and the sales referral and marketing aspect, but I'm seeing this need for alignment and clarity as something that is, again, very broad. Companies of all sizes, teams of all types. If people can misunderstand things, they will.
Yep.
Yes, we will, won't we?
We just had
enough.
Dan and I just had this conversation like 2 minutes before we jumped on this about something that we designed and built out that is being isn't being communicated the second way around, and well, you gotta blow it up. Let's roll. So that's some great insight for sure.
Awesome, Steve. Hey, so where's the best way to find you? We're gonna put some links in the show notes, but where do you send everybody, Steve?
So on the web, it's clarityfuel.com is the website. On Facebook, it's King of Clarity. And the book has a short link, claritywins.org, which goes directly to Amazon. And there you can order the softcover book or the ebook. And Twitter, which I don't use that often, is Woodruff.
So look up Clarity and we'll find you. That's perfect. Excellent, Steve. Thank you very much for being a part of this. We'll put all that in the show notes, man.
All right. Great. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Yep. Absolutely. Thank you.
Remington, good to meet you.
Yes, you as well. I feel like I've known you forever now. So we're good.
Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, please share it. Post it, tweet it, gram it, email a friend. Give the gift of knowledge to someone you know that could benefit from it. And if you really loved it, please consider leaving a rating and written review on your podcast player of choice. And as always, go to wayfindinggrowth.com for resources and past episodes. Remember, we're here to help you navigate your business growth with strategic conversations and insights from experts in multiple industries. Thank you for listening to Wayfinding Growth.